The Board of Education welcomes and values your comments in the time set aside during the first regular meeting of the month for public participation. So all concerns may be heard. Please observe these rules for public participation. Only 3 people may speak on the same topic. Each speaker may take up to 5 minutes to address the board, and each speaker may not reflect adversely on individuals. If a parent or community member has a complaint about an employee, it should be referred to the employee supervisor. Those wishing to address the board on agenda items only may sign up at the podium prior to the start of the meeting. Tonight's forum to address the board concerning non-agenda items will include only those who had signed up by noon earlier today with the superintendent's office. These will take place at the end of tonight's agenda. As a reminder, public participation is an opportunity for the community to address the board in a formal setting. However, it is not designed or intended to be interactive. While we greatly appreciate individuals engaging with us, we expect the administrative and building level staff to work cooperatively with the community to address items discussed. We also request that audience members be respectful of each participant in the process. We thank you for attending tonight's Board of Education meeting and for your support of our school system.
Join us for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We'll now call this Monday, July 10th, 2023 regular Board of Education meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bosso.
Here.
Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Martindale. Mr. Shriner.
Here.
Mr. Caldwell.
Here. Next, we have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So move, Shriner.
Thank you, Mr. Shriner. Any second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any additions or changes? Here none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Shriner.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Bosso.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. Right. In your meeting minutes, I'm sorry, on the agenda tonight, you'll see the meeting minutes from the June 26, 2023 meeting. Can we have a motion to accept those minutes?
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bosso. Any additions or corrections? Here none, roll call, please.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Bosso. Yes. Mr. Shriner.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. Board reports. Any board reports? Right here, none. Now we have public participation relative to agenda items. We have 2. Oh, none. Oh, that's the one up there. You're right. I'm sorry. None for that one. Next, we'll go to the legislative liaison report with Mr. Sharp.
That everyone has been looking forward to. Thank you, President Caldwell. An update on the biennial budget signed by Governor DeWine. The state's 2-year operating budget was signed by Governor Mike DeWine in the early hours of July 4th. This came after the House and Senate Conference Committee members settled many of their differences on deadline day. Though the budget changed numerous times along the way, one thing stayed the same. Those supportive of public education are a little disappointed due to some policy changes. Ed Choice voucher expansion was kept in the final form of the budget and is set to cost Ohio taxpayers an additional $825 million compared to what is currently spent on vouchers. No additional assessment measures, report cards, financial reporting, or auditing stipulations have been tied to Ed Choice voucher expansion, leaving Ohio taxpayers in the dark if this increased public spending is beneficial to all or only non-public schools and their private interests. Changes to the State Board of Education were also kept in the final version of the budget signed by Governor DeWine. The partially elected State Board of Education is to be stripped of all but its regulatory powers and will no longer be acting in any significant way on behalf of the citizens they represent across Ohio. Now the major policy-making powers previously held by the State Board of Education will be given to a cabinet-level agency called the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. Though there is much to be disappointed about with House Bill 33, there are still some wins for public education. Some notable portions of House Bill 33 are as follows. Reduces the number of personal income tax brackets to just 2 with rates of 2.75% and 3.5%. It uses fiscal year 2022 data for base cost inputs. It amends the mandatory student retention under the law known as the third grade reading guarantee to permit a student to be promoted to the fourth grade if the student's parents or guardian consults with the student's reading teacher and principal as they agree to the student's promotion, regardless of whether the student is at reading level, and requires the student to continue receiving reading intervention services until the student reads at grade level. It requires ODE, the Ohio Department of Education, to provide reimbursements to make school breakfast and lunch free for all students eligible for reduced price meals. It increases the new teacher base salary to $35,000 used to support public and non-public education for students K through 12. Requires each school district provide free feminine hygiene products to girls enrolled in grades 6 through 12. Requires schools to accept cash at athletic and school events with a limited exemption for an event at a public facility that is leased by a professional sports team or a privately owned facility. The state board will now be responsible only for teacher licensure and territory transfers. With the final budget completed, the state legislature heads into its summer recess, which they are now on. Excuse me for my throat. Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Next, we'll go to items for action for fiscal operational management. Mr. Post.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under fiscal and operational management, I do have a question. Do we have to separate the nominations for the OSB?
No, you can do it. You can just say those two.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Items for action, like I was saying, we have 7 items for action under fiscal and operational management. The first is donations, Exhibit X1. It's recommended that the Board of Education accept the donations of $929.84 as detailed in Exhibit X1, and send authorized letters of appreciation to those donors. We appreciate it so much for those donors. Item number 2, the renew membership in Ohio Coalition of Equity and Adequacy of School Funding and the Voucher Project litigation. It's recommended the Board of Education renew membership in Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding and the Voucher Project litigation for the years 2023-2024. Combined dues for both of those are $2 times the most recent enrollment in our district, which was 21,800 students, which amounts to $43,600. Item number 3, the approval of payments in lieu of transportation. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the payments in lieu of transportation for this 2023-2024 year as presented in X2, which is as confidential student information, so you guys won't see that. According to section 3227.01 of the Ohio Revised Code, the minimum amount for schools for the year 2023-2024 is 50% of the average cost of pupil transportation for the previous year, as determined by the State Board of Education, in the amount of $596.43. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve these payments in lieu of transportation to these residents as they apply and been approved to receive these reimbursements. Item number 4, return of advances. It's recommended the Board of Education authorize the treasurer to return advances to the general fund as presented in X3. Item number 5, agreement with the Franklin County Common Police Board. It's recommended that the Board of Education enter into agreement with the Franklin County Clerk of Courts to provide truancy services for the 2023-2024 school year. Exhibit X4. This is done a cost-saving measure to provide these services for truancy at a reasonable cost. It costs a lot more for the district to hire these employees on our own. Item number 6, agreement with Directions for Youth. It's recommended the Board of Education enter into agreement with Directions for Youth and Family to provide assessments and individual services for plans for students in the amount of $60,000 for the 2023-2024 school year. Directions for Youth provides individual services plans for students in need of behavioral health services. And the item number 7, which is the last, is delegate appointment for the Ohio School Board Association's annual business meeting. Each year, the Board of Education appoints a delegate and an alternate to attend the annual business meeting of the Ohio School Board Association at the Capitol Conference. This year's business meeting is scheduled for November 13th, 2023. It's recommended the Board of Education appoint Anthony Caldwell as delegate and Lee Schreiner as the alternate. After reviewing these items, I move into pass.
Sir, do we have a second? Ms. Johnson, any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, on item number 2, this is something that I've argued about even before I got on the board with the voucher project, and it seems with our new budget, that ship has kind of already sailed. I've always, some people say I'm against public education. I am not. I mean, my kids go to Southwestern City Schools. They graduate from Southwestern City Schools. What I look at in this litigation and the vouchers, whatever is best for these kids, and I think the parents know best for what's for their kids. That's what I want for the children, no matter if it's at this school or another school. So as far as that, I would be voting against that.
Any other discussion? Right here, none, roll call please. Mr. Bosso.
Yes, all two of them except item number 2. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Schreiner.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell. Yes. Under items for action, facilities development, back to Mr. Bosso.
Back to me. All right. Sorry. All right. Under items for action for facilities development, a resolution authorizing the Southwestern City School District to award the contract for the construction of the replacement of the facilities at the Stiles Family Resource Center and to permit the withdrawal bid of the apparent low bid. Bids were opened up in June 29th of this year. Pepper Construction did have the lowest bid, but they erred in their bidding. They wanted that withdrawn. So the next lowest bid came from Facilities Construction at $5,314,720 with a $500,000 contingency for unforeseen items and owner requested changes. After reviewing this item, Mr. President, I move for passage.
You have a second?
Second, Schreiner.
Thank you, Vice President Schreiner. Any discussion on this? I would just say that it's a long time coming. We're really excited about the opportunity to rebuild this facility. I know we have teachers from the building and we also have kids who have gone to the building and mom very active in the PTA there. And so glad to be here as we start the next phase of this project. Roll call please. Mr. Bosso.
Yes.
Schreiner.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell. Yes. Next, items for action, schools committee, student schools and committee. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, President Caldwell. We have 3 student field trips to approve this evening. The first is the Central Crossing Choir going to Chicago for a music clinic at Vandercook College. That will be March 22nd through the 24th, 2024. There'll be 40 students with 4 chaperones, and transportation will be via charter bus paid for by students, parents, and fundraising. The second trip is the Central Crossing High School boys soccer to Ohio Dominican, July 17th through the 19th of 2023. There'll be 24 students with 1 adult chaperone, transportation via the parents, expenses paid by parents, students, and boosters. And finally, the Grove City High School Travel Club is going to Greece and on a Mediterranean sea cruise. That's June 13th through the 21st of 2025. There will be 20 students, 4 adult chaperones, transportation via airplane, charter bus, and cruise ship. Expenses are paid for by students and parents. Having reviewed these items, I move for passage.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Mr. Bosso, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please. Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Bosso.
Yes.
Mr. Schreiner.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell. Yes. Next items for action, personnel, Mr. Schreiner.
Thank you, President Caldwell. On the board agenda for this evening are 6 personnel items involving 310 persons. This includes 29 certificated and administrative resignations, 5 certificated changes in employment status, 194 certificated employments, 4 classified resignations, 3 classified changes in employment status, and 75 classified employments. After reviewing these action items, I now move them for passage.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second that.
We have a roll call, please. Mr. Schreiner,
Yes.
Mr. Bosso,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell. Yes.
And Mr. President, if I may,
Yeah.
I just want to say a thank you from all of us, I think, for our personnel department. It's a lot, we're finding teachers and we're finding folks to work for us. And I think it's an endless job that they've really been doing a great job. So just wanted to thank all of them very much.
And next, public participation relative to non-agenda items. First, we will have Ms. Kyra Paul.
You'll have to forgive me because my stuff is on my phone. My computer stopped working, so I couldn't get it printed out. Oh, sorry, thank you. So first and foremost, I would like to thank the school board and the district for listening to parent concerns and taking action when they can. It makes me as a parent feel really, really good. And I think being involved in my schools that I have 2 children at, parents also get to see that, and I think it gives them the opportunity to know that their voice can be heard and things can change in a way that betters their students' education and the other residents in our district. Around this time last year, I spoke to the board about the condition, safety, and the security of the Stiles Family Resource Center. And as we heard earlier in this meeting, a bid was placed and accepted, and there is a new Stiles Family Resource Center being built. We are also excited, staff, families, everybody. Something that has been brought to my attention, however, is that the new building will not have a bathroom in each classroom. This has been brought to my attention as a very big concern for the teachers and the staff that will occupy this building. Preschool age children often are newly toilet trained and need to use the bathroom when they need to use the bathroom. And this can make it difficult staying in compliance with student and staff ratios following ODJFS, ODE, and Head Start guidelines. There has been a known staff shortage, so having floaters readily available to take a child to the restroom when it's needed may not be possible and may force staff to go out of ratio or would have to stop and disrupt the entire classroom instruction and would have to use the bathroom, causing a huge loss in instructional time. So they would spend 3 entire sessions back and forth to the restroom. So with that, I'd like to ask putting restrooms in every classroom be revisited, considering there is an additional $500,000 put in the budget for changes as needed. Another topic of discussion would be transportation for preschool and Head Start programs in our district. And I'd like to share a personal story of mine regarding this. The school year of 2021, there was a mom and a son that lived walking distance to the Stiles Resource Center. And when several months into the year, they had to move to be in a safer and a healthier home and environment. That new home was only about 2.5 miles from the center, but was on 2 COTA bus routes, which would require 2 buses and at least a ½ mile walk from the closest bus stop to the school. With those conditions and it being winter, the student was no longer able to be in attendance. The center's bilingual assistant reached out to me and asked if I would take the student to and from school every day, that she had discussed with the mom that I was a good and a trustworthy person. So every day I picked her son up and I dropped him back off for the rest of the school year. All while her and I and her student could not communicate in any capacity because she spoke no English and I speak next to no Spanish. This mom had to trust a complete stranger that she couldn't communicate with to get her son to preschool because she knew how important his attendance was for his future education. I'm not sure I would have been willing to do the same, and no parent or caregiver should be faced with that decision, in my opinion. Since my oldest daughter started in the Head Start program in 2019, I learned that transportation was the #1 reason students were not able to be in attendance. Then COVID happened. Sickness became the #1 reason, not just COVID, but other illnesses. I'd like to have a discussion about facilitating transportation, not only for our Head Start students, but for all of Southwestern preschool students and their families. And I also want to make sure that you understand that I understand that there is a busing situation. There are driver shortages, and adding buses and drivers and routes is a huge hurdle, and that there are several obstacles to overcome. Lastly, and I spoke about this last year, but I'd like to speak about it again. The teachers in the Head Start centers, and I'm not sure about the other preschools within our district, but I'm familiar with Head Start mostly. The guidelines to be a teacher are 4-year degrees. And to be an assistant teacher, you have to be a 2-year degree. Those teachers are aides and they are paid accordingly, and they are not teachers. So I would like to discuss in negotiations in 2025 that those teachers and their positions be discussed and revisited. But thank you again for the opportunity to speak and for also listening and taking action. It's greatly appreciated.
Next, we have Cheryl Spar.
I'd like to thank the board for taking the time to listen to me. I want to share an incident that happened with your buses. And as the lady had just spoke, I am aware, and I think everybody in the Southwestern City Schools that have children and grandchildren are aware of that. At the beginning of last year, he was a first grader. My grandson was on the bus for 3 hours. We called transportation and they refused to share where my grandson was. 3 hours, not knowing, was traumatic for us as parents and grandchildren, but also my grandchild, who got off the bus 3 hours later and was in panic mode because he didn't know where he was at, and nobody was there to comfort him because the bus driver was driving. I myself was in critical care at Doctor's Hospital when I found this, and it did not help to my stress or worrying about where my grandson was. What I'm going to propose and what the steps that I've done since then was I sent this particular form that is on the website for transportation. If I can find it, bear with me here. To change the bus stop. Okay, I presented this, faxed it, got confirmation that it went through. Never received a call from the transportation department regarding that. I have reached out and I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but John Urban, okay, you know who I'm talking about. Even today, I have reached out to him. My daughter has reached out to him multiple times with emails and phone calls. I called the gentleman this morning. I was on hold for 10 minutes. This is at 8:10 this morning. Finally, I said, I'll wait, I'll hold until he gets off the phone. The gentleman that was talking to me on the phone said, I'm sorry, he's off the phone, but he's no longer taking calls today. And I said, I find that very disheartening that a gentleman that has been at work for 20 minutes refuses to take a call that early in the morning. This here was very disturbing that nobody even cared. This was before my grandson was on the bus for 3 hours. I am begging you guys, as your board, do not let any child be unattended on a bus for that many hours. It's very detrimental to the child and the family. My child borderlines, my grandson, I'm sorry, borderlines autistic and ADHD. With that said, we have asked in this letter to make arrangements based on his disability and required by the American Disabilities Act with children in public school and private school. It is required by law that you guys present or provide, I can't say that, special transportation to make these children safe. Nobody has listened to us. So with this map, it's very simple. And I would like to show this, if I may, pass this to you guys so you can look at this. I also have been aware that in order to change a bus stop, it has to be board approved. May I approach the board? This is no way with the bus being out of it. It's an L-shaped road. boom, boom, and you're done. That is my first response. This, that very simple. You do it. Anybody cares to look at it? I don't know what the answers are, but you know, I just beg you, please don't put us through that again. I'm asking for special consideration to help, so nobody has to do this again. And please let your transportation people, especially the ones that are listed on your website, somebody needs to respond. This is almost a year later, and I still haven't got a response from the stuff that I submitted last school year. So I beg of you, maybe take a look at that, maybe take a vote. This is the only child at that bus stop. When the buses are late, the high school children come and they're horrified that they're the only little kids standing there with all these kids. So I am requesting that be moved on another vote, or however you guys do it, I don't know, but that's my purpose for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Starr. I'm sure someone will follow up with you tomorrow, and we'll be in contact, make sure that we get that handled.
Thank you very much.
If not, call me. My cell phone number is on the website, so we'll make sure someone calls up.
I've been in contact with Mr. Schreiber.
It's good. We're all calling you. Appreciate that. Next, we have items for discussion, board item. Anything for the board?
I had one thing, Mr. President.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, and I was gonna do it during Mr. Bozo's facility report. I stopped in and got to look at our Darby Woods, Buckeye Woods classrooms that are being done. And the walls that are being put in, and it's excellent. That what's done so far, it just is amazing. So I think they will be very happy as the summer goes on. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, Dr. White. One of the pods that I saw, it blends in perfectly with the rest of the school. It's just well done. Just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
And someone who worked in a mobile unit for a long time, I know that you love to see.
You just run a real classroom.
Yeah, you want
That's right.
bricks and mortar, I understand. So,
Amen.
the only thing that I will say is I appreciate this call, Ms. Sparkman today. We really do value the input of parents and other community members that come to these meetings. And as Ms. Paul mentioned, a year ago, she came here and told us about some things going on at Styles, and the board listened and the administration listened. And we went out and looked at the facility, and luckily through some federal funds that we were able to find through the Recovery Act, we were able to replace that building. It's probably a once in a generation investment that we're going to receive, which is great. But it is allowing us to do projects like Mr. Schneider just talked about, the addition to some of our other buildings, and then replace the Style Resource Center. So we appreciate that we could do that. Those projects are on time, on budget, under budget most of the time, and is at no additional cost to taxpayers since the levy was passed in 2009. Is that right? 2012, yeah, close. But it's nice, it's been over a decade, and we're still able to reinvest local resources and then use federal funds to help improve our district. As you know, we've replaced almost every building in the district with the exception of our two high schools, Grove City and Westland. And we're hoping with continued community support that in the future we can do those two buildings as well. So thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Hearing nothing else, I'll accept motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
Have a second.
Second that?
All right, roll call, please.
Johnson,
Yes.
Bosso,
Yes.
Mr. Schreiner,
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Be safe.